Hi everybody. For this video, we're going to go over how to add animation into our player movement. We're going to focus on three things to make it as simple as possible. It will be adding an animation, adding the animator controller, and then adding our script triggers to make the animation work. Let's get started. To make this as simple as possible, and if you want to follow along with me exactly, I am using an asset that already has animations in it. It's the RPG Tiny Hero Duo from Unity's Asset Store, and it is totally free. All right, now the first thing I want to do is mess with my player. I want to get rid of the capsule that I currently have as my player image, and I'm going to add that prefab that I downloaded from the Tiny Heroes. And I'm going to get rid of the animator that's currently connected to it because I want to make my own. The one that is pre-made isn't actually going to work the way you want it to, so you're also going to want to remove it. And I'm just going to adjust that capsule a little bit so that it fits my player a little bit better. There we go. And next, I'm going to add an animator controller. So to do that, I'm going to do a few things. First of all, inside of my assets, I'm going to create a new folder, which I'll call animation. And inside of it, I'm just going to delete the previous one. I'm going to add a new animator controller from Create. I'll call it player animation. And I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Now, from here, this should hopefully look very, very similar to what we've done with 2D animation. We've got an entry point, and we're going to want it to go into some sort of different state. I'm going to call this one movement. And I'm going to do something a little bit new here for my motion. Instead of doing our traditional just add like an idle motion and then change it when we start moving, I'm going to do something called a blend tree. To do that, I'll right click on movement, click create new blend tree in the state. And then, just in case you didn't see it, I double clicked on blend tree from here. And the blend type, I want this to be 2D simple directional. My parameters, I'm going to want a parameter for movement in the X and movement in the Y. So to do that, I'm just going to add two float parameters. One's already there, blend. I'm just going to move that or change that to X movement. And the other one, I'm going to change to Z movement. And my parameters will be X movement and Z movement. And then inside of motion, I'm going to add 5 motion fields. I know this is going to sound like overkill, but you'll see why. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 0, 0 is going to be idle. Moving forward will be 0, 1. Moving backward will be 0, negative 1. Moving left will be negative 1, 0. And moving right will be 1, 0. So you can see my 5 dots. And inside of each of these, I'm going to put in my animations that I download from the asset. One, when I'm at 0, 0, I want them to idle. So I'll choose this one, idle, normal, sword and shield. And then moving forward, I'm going to have move forward, in place. Moving backward, move backward in place. Moving left, that will be move left in place. This one. And moving right will be move right in place. Perfect. Okay. And then next, I'm just going to add a second state. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. There are better ways to do a jump than this, but this is one way that I just know will work. I'm going to create a new state, which I'm going to call jump. And I'm going to transition from movement to the jump. And transition from jump back to movement. And I want this to trigger when a parameter or Boolean called isJumping is true. So I'm going to add that parameter really quick. That's going to be a bool. I'll call it isJumping. And I want the jump to happen if isJumping is true. And I want the jump to stop happening if isJumping is false. And then finally, I'm also going to want to get rid of exit time because of the fact that I'm going to want this to happen instantaneously. And as soon as I go into jump, I want to go into a jump animation. So I'm going to find one that I think works. Let's see. Jump normal in play should work. All right, I think that is everything that I need for my animator controller. Next, I'm going to add this to my player. To do that's going to be very, very simple. I'm just going to click on my player, the same place that I have my player controller script. And I'm going to add an animator. Animator, not animation. And then the controller I put inside of it is going to be this one. The avatar, I'm going to click plus, and the nice thing is that asset came with an avatar already built in. That's this one right here. Perfect. So I almost have everything. If I play the game right now, what you'll see happen is both of these values are going to be 0, isJumping is going to be false, and my player is just going to stand there idly. Here we go. I'm going to just kind of put the animator on the side so that you can kind of see what's happening. When I move around, my character just stays in the idle animation. Doesn't really do much of anything. So in order to trigger that movement and the correct jumps, I'm going to have to add that into my script, which will be very, very simple. I'll show you that right now. First of all, go over into your scripts and the player controller script, which I created previously. And I'm going to add a few things to this. First thing I'm going to add is a variable linking to my animator. I'm just going to call it animator. And in the start, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the animator that is connected to the player, which is actually just that. This has to be connected to the same location that the script is in. And then next, in order to add that vertical and horizontal movement, here is exactly where I'm going to do that. I'm going to write animator.setFloat. And I need to make sure that the parameters match up. So my parameter name was xMovement. I'm going to just copy and paste that so that I don't have any sort of error. Because if, wrong code, if I end up incorrectly labeling it, I'm not going to see an error in my script. However, it's not going to actually work, which is really not what I'm going for. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for zMovement. zMovement is going to follow my vertical movement. Excellent. So these two will set the floats for my float tree, or for my blend tree. And then the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger that jump. I'm going to do the exact same thing, only instead of set float, it will be set bool. And logically, it would make sense for me to be in a jumping animation when I'm not on the ground. So right here, I happen to have a method called ground check. And if my player is grounded, I am going to set that float, or I'm sorry, set that Boolean. And I believe I called it isJumping. Let me just quick double check. Yes. I'm going to copy and paste that so that I don't have any sort of logic errors. But isJumping is going to be false if I am on the ground. And if I am not on the ground, isJumping will be true. And there you have it. That is actually everything that I should need in my script. I grabbed the animator, which is connected to that animator controller. Here is where I actually initialize it. And then I set my floats to match those movements, and I set my Boolean for jumping to match if I'm on the ground or not. Let's save this and run and see what happens. Now you should see when my player moves, there goes my walking animation, which is excellent. It might be a little bit slower than I want it to be. I can speed that up inside of the animator controller, and then when I jump, I do get into a jumping animation, which is exactly what I was going for. Awesome. All right, that is just about everything for this video. If you have any questions, of course, please contact me. Bye, everybody.